Hey, good morning. Or, yeah, good morning still for you
Yes.
guys.
Good morning, and very good to see you. And
You
we're
too.
sorry that you've been ill.
Thank you. I know you can still hear the
Oh, I
sickness. I
can
didn't
hear it
have
in
a
your
voice.
voice.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't have a voice for a few days. So, but I'm feeling better. So that's good.
No, I'm going to find out what you've been up to. Uh, uh, but first of all, you see the ceiling behind me.
Yes.
That was a ceiling over Tom Paine.
Wonderful.
Well, when I spoke to Stephanos in Mexico 2 weeks ago, he took one look at it and said, not only is he going to write an operetta about Tom Paine, but we are to perform it in this bar.
Ah, that sounds fantastic. What a great
Absolutely. So
idea.
you're going to have your work cut out in helping to organize this.
That sounds amazing. We just had a meeting yesterday, so with the whole board of the opera company. So
Good. Well,
glad.
he's like you. He's great value for money. He's a lovely, lovely man.
Yeah, no, he's so wonderful. He's so and has an energy like you wouldn't believe. So it's great.
Yeah, so it's likely to happen.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, they were
That's
talking about writing operas. It's so funny because um, we're trying to get more people to come to this opera that we're having on October 28th, La Vestale. And and God bless Stephanos, he does this gorgeous, like beautifully written, the history and the importance of this opera. And I was like, why don't we start talking about kind of like the more accessible elements of opera? Like, look, this woman, like, kind of saves the day and she finally marries the love of her life and stuff like that. Because, I mean, ultimately, those are the things that are running through the opera, so anyway, I posted something last night that was just like, and not to be a spoiler, but she does end up with the love of her life. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. I think,
yes,
trying to make opera a little bit more accessible it
yes.
can only be a win. So,
Well, now, Suzanne is, although, as you know, our theme on Mirador is we are local but not parochial. And actually, I'm always gobsmacked by the number of people overseas who watch, perhaps because we're a bit international. But if you send me, send me via not StreamYard, we transfer or something like that. If you send me any material that you've got promoted, I will happily put it on Mirador
okay, great.
because I mean, not only do we have a good relationship with New York generally, but I think that we are beginning to evolve as good partners with your opera company, and I'm very happy to promote it all I can,
All right.
and and certainly. As you know, because of Glyndebourne, we have a lot of opera lovers here in Lewis, and the word spreads. So send me whatever you can, and I will most certainly play it and promote it. Because
Okay.
I'm one of your great fans, one of your great admirers on this opera project.
We should do like a charter flight to come to New York to see the
Well,
opera.
that's an idea, isn't it?
Yeah, that'd be
Absolutely,
fun, right? I don't
yeah.
know. That's what my next thing. I have to become a pilot so I can charter a plane.
And you'll probably do it.
I don't know. That might be one thing that I might avoid, but I don't know. I love flying, but I'm not sure I want to fly the plane. I guess I have to
Uh,
figure that out. No, I'm kidding. But
Actually, it's a lot of fun piloting a plane. I never went above a twin engine, but I've got 400 hours as a pilot.
really?
Uh, yes, and mostly flying out of Vancouver. Um,
Mm.
and I'm quite sure that if you let me loose with a plane now, I would have great difficulty. Getting it off the ground would be no problem. Getting it back onto the ground might be.
Yeah, that's that. If only you could just stay in the air the whole time, right? Yeah, exactly. If
That'd be
only
all
you didn't
right.
have to land. I know that's a good metaphor for life. If you only didn't have to land.
Yes. Now, tell us what you've been up to.
Well, I've been doing lots of work and things like that. This week is the UN General Assembly in New York. Um, so that means that it will be a week of traffic jams and closed streets and things like that, which, New Yorkers we're not really big into closed streets for fancy people. So it's definitely an adjustment for New Yorkers. So basically means you have to walk everywhere because even subways are slower and everything. So, but and then I leave a week from yesterday for Italy. So I'm excited about going to Italy.
Yes.
I think I'm going to stay in Milan and then go to Verona and then go to Venice, but haven't completely finalized everything. So, and let's see what
Okay.
else is going on. Interviewing and meeting people. And oh, I had a very nice dinner. I've been arranging a group of women who I've known for a lot of years, but all from different kinds of walks of life, from work, from school, from being a mom, and all these things. And put together a group of just really, really nice women who are funny and I'm hoping ultimately supportive of each other. And we had our first dinner this week, and we just had a ball. We just basically laughed for like 3 hours. So that was really good. Of course, I lost my voice even more after that, um, but it was nice to be together with everybody. So I think that, life is so funny when you're in college or even when you're just starting work. It's so easy to make new friends and to, kind of, you know, have a lot of fun and just, you're never kind of really feeling alone. But then, like, the older you get, like, your kids kind of are growing up, and those friends that you made in school, sometimes you still have them, sometimes you don't. Um, but you still need friends, and you still need to laugh a lot.
Really?
So
Absolutely.
anyway, that's my theory that we'll get that going.
Yes.
Oh, and then I did a few AI versions of me. Have you ever done
Ah,
that? You should do that, Keith. You should have some AI versions of you on some of your intros because they look very cool. Like mine makes me look like a superhero.
yeah. Who did you make them with?
I don't know. It's just an app. It wasn't a cheap app though. Like you have to pay for each
Yeah.
time, but then they send you like, I don't know. I think they sent me 50 or 60 versions, and I actually sent one to my husband last night by text. I'm like, "Does this even look like me?" And he's like, "Actually, it does." It's really funny. Anyway, so yeah, I did that because I've noticed that on LinkedIn, a lot of people post lots of pictures of themselves, but they're different every day. And I've,
Yeah.
completely understood that it was because of
Yeah.
AI. And so then I thought I'd try it. So anyway.
Yes. Well, I'm looking at AI to help our news gathering service. I'm happy to say that, first of all, of course, we're getting a fabulous team together now. And we're really looking forward to you and Mark maybe getting your slot going. But Harry Aston, who is on just ahead of you, I've known him for a long time. He lives in France now. And actually, as an architect, I'm sure that you'll be interested in talking to him because he refurbished and got going five old French castles,
Hmm,
and with one, he turned it into a hotel.
there
And
you go.
apparently, Michael Jackson came and took a look at it on the basis that he might buy it. So you could tell the sort of refurbishment that he's been doing. And Harry is, although he lives in France now, in Normandy, he's been in two market towns this week, and he was describing the two of them to us. So when you're in Italy, I do expect you to find the what do we call that thing that links us?
Oh, I can
The,
definitely connect with you. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because we like to hear from you. I mean, not least of which is you're a key part of the team. You're really so bubbly, and everybody loves you. And when you're not here, it upsets the apple cart.
I know, I'm like cereal in the morning, right? You have to have a bowl or you just don't feel right for the rest of the day. Or maybe I'm more like coffee. I don't know.
Now, why are you going to Italy?
So I'm going as part of a trade delegation with the Italian Trade Agency for the Stone Show. So they have it's basically one of the largest natural stone shows in the world, and everyone comes from all over the world with their huge blocks of natural stone, and they sell them. So, but they also show machinery and things like that, and so through the years, I've made a lot of friends in this industry. And then I also now have a lot of clients who are looking for something special. Um, so I'll be looking at sourcing as well as meeting new people, and then also catching up with my friends and seeing how we can connect and work together. I mean, I have some of the most amazing friends in the stone industry. I mean, when we get together, I don't know, it's just like we have such great memories of traveling the world and seeing amazing things. So I will be going to a quarry. So that's always exciting to go to a quarry.
Yes.
And so currently have a client who wants something very special for their home. So we'll see if I can find something. So
Right, right.
yeah, yeah. And I'm actually going. Yeah, sorry.
So talking about working with people, I would love to find a television operation similar to ours in the States that we could work with, because I learn and we learn in this country so much from you and Melissa. And as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, it's as Churchill said, two great nations separated by a common language. So is what we do socially are two very separate ways of living. And I
Hmm.
think if we can let people in the States know a little bit better how we live, because we are already learning how you live, is what a great contribution it would be to the global community. So think about that, will you?
I will. I definitely will. I mean, I think, once again, you're very unique in your way of capturing a local TV station where you have so many kind of interesting people who are also everyday people. So, but I'll definitely see who might be a good mix and see if we can figure it out. That would be great. I'm actually going to
Great.
Boston on Friday. So I am traveling to Boston. Have you been to Boston, Keith?
I just very briefly.
Oh,
Believe it or not, I've done some of the strangest things in my life. But I was a speaker at the governor of Maine's economic conference a few years ago, and so I went to Boston and stayed the night before traveling up to Bangor in Maine. I mean, it's a very ancient town, is it not?
well, I mean, Boston, the funniest thing, I had been to Boston a few times, but the first time I went to Boston when I was kind of like, I don't know, I think it was late 20s or something. I went to visit a really good friend who is still like one of my best friends. He now lives in Manhattan. And I went to visit him. We went to a party. I guess it was Friday night. We went to this party. And I met a whole bunch of new people. It was so great. I'm like, oh, this city is terrific. I heard this city was small. It's like there's lots of cool people. So then the next morning, he and I met to go have a coffee on Newberry Street. And so we were walking down Newberry with our cup of coffee. And I am not joking, Keith. Everybody who was at the party the night before was walking down Newberry Street. it's like the smallest big city, in the world, I think. It was really funny. But I'm going to meet with an architecture firm that I'm sort of just kind of starting conversations with to see if I can be helpful to them. So it'll be fun to go. And then I travel the next day. Oh, I come back that night. And my daughter has her cross country. Oh, this is what I'm going to do this week too. So this week, my daughter has a cross country meet, and she had one last week too. But it was impossible to get there. I tried. Like her meet starts at 4, And so I was about ready to leave the city at 2. The meet's in the Bronx, and I live in Manhattan. And there was like no way to get there on time. And so now I've decided that this week I'm going to go to this place called Wave Hill, which is this gorgeous public garden that's only 5 minutes away from where she's going to be doing her meet. I'm going to go there, hang out there all day, and then just take a quick 5-minute trip so I don't miss her meet this week. But it's a beautiful place. This place called Wave Hill. It's right on the Hudson River. It's so I'm looking forward to working from there this week. So,
is she a cross country runner?
My daughter is a cross country runner. My daughter is 5'8", I think, and she is 13. So she's very tall, and she's like, she's like all legs, and and she likes to run. So I think it's nice. So
yes, it's on a slightly different plane. There is a movie called "The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner." And it's a bit of a depressing movie because it's about a boy in a juvenile detention home who takes up cross country as an activity and the effect it has on its life. And it's quite an old movie. I mean, I must have seen it when I was about 15. Tom Courtenay is the star, if you can find it on the internet, take a little look at it, because as I say, it's slightly depressing, but it surrounds cross country.
All right, I'll definitely look it up. It was funny. I was working with this guy when I was at the university a couple of years ago. The president of the university I was working at had heard about this system called OcuSpace. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It's an app that basically discerns how many people are in a room by counting the amount of IP addresses that are being kind of accessed and stuff. And then that information can be sent either onto a website or onto another app that says, hey, don't go to the library today. There's 1,000 people there and there's no seats, kind of thing, And so the president thought it'd be really cool to have this app because we had just relocated the library on campus. And I was like, yeah, sure. So I called this guy up. Well, this guy and I got on like so well. We just kind of were chatting away. And of course, kind of as you're talking to him, you're kind of wondering yourself, he's like, oh, is there any way I can make this app myself? But of course you don't want to steal the guy's idea. But, but we had this terrific conversation. It turns out that he went to college at UC San Diego. Have you ever heard of that school? It's like this beautiful school in San Diego. But they also have an outdoor art collection on the campus. It's called the Stewart Collection, and they basically commission artwork like every few years. And the entire campus have these just amazing sculptures throughout the campus. So when you're kind of walking back to your dorm or walking to your classes, you see these like extraordinary kind of works of art. And he was explaining that even though he was going to school for engineering, he's like, you leave your engineering class, you're like, oh, I wish I had done better on that class or done better on that test. And he goes, and then all of a sudden you'll see the sculpture of this, like one of them is this house that's kind of upside down and landed like in the middle of the campus. So he's like, it really was a way of sort of re-gauging your mind, Anyway, his wife is an Olympic runner. And so he was telling me, he's like, oh, my wife is an Olympic runner. He's like, if your daughter wants to meet my wife, I can certainly organize it, So anyway, I've stayed in touch with her, and I'm trying to organize like a half-hour conversation where they can kind of talk about running, and because it's, obviously it's a huge commitment to be an Olympic runner. But his wife decided to run for Armenia. She's actually Armenian originally. So she's not running for the US, she's running for Armenia. So anyway, she should be in the next Olympics. Yeah, she's super fast.
Armenia is one of my favorite countries. I've been there several times, and I've been there for extended periods. I have quite a few friends in Armenia. Yerevan is a very, very nice city. Lovely little city, in fact. just as a little aside, it has there a brandy factory called Ararat Brandy, because Yerevan looks out over Mount Ararat, where Noah's Ark was supposedly found. But it was Churchill's favourite brandy, and he noticed that the quality had gone off a bit, and he knew that it was also Stalin's favourite brandy. So he fired off a telegram to Stalin and sort of said, "What's happening at Ararat? Because the quality of the brandy is going down." So Stalin made an inquiry and discovered that he sent the chief chemist to a gulag. And he immediately ordered the chemist to be released and to go back, and then got a congratulatory telegram from Churchill saying, "Thanks, the brandy is back on track."
Wow, that is interesting.
I think actually you've never been to Armenia.
I have never been to Armenia, no.
You would find it as an architect particularly interesting, because it embraced Christianity as a state religion around 600 AD. And because it borders on Turkey, it was always being invaded by the Muslim hordes, and they had to protect these things. So they built cathedrals and churches actually into the cliffs so they could defend them. And they are still extant, and they are beautiful. And they also have their own version of the Vatican, very small, but it's their own version. So architecturally, Armenia is a very, very interesting place.
I think I have to go. I have to make that put that on my list. I want to bring the kids to Barcelona because the Sagrada Familia is slated to be completely finished. I don't know if cathedrals are ever finished, but in 2026, because that will be the 100th anniversary of Antoni Gaudi's death. So it'll be kind of cool to, I lived in Barcelona for like 6 months when I was in college, in grad school, actually. And I've been dying to show the kids the city, and because it's such a great city, and, but I haven't done that yet. So I have to organize it somehow, but Armenia will be on my list too. Yeah.
Yeah. You're very young. You've got lots of time to go to all these places.
I'm very young. It's true. Sometimes, people don't understand that I have lived a long life in a short period of time. Maybe not so short.
One thing I meant to ask you is I saw in passing that there was some sort of demonstration at the United Nations since the General Assembly was meeting. What was the demonstration about?
Oh, I mean, they happen all the time. I don't know which one this one it was, but I think it's about clean water, though, because the U.S. Open also had a few protests around clean water, and it's a very valuable thing to protest about, because the statistics around clean water worldwide is pretty bleak. So that's my understanding.
Yeah.
And this is Climate Week as well. It's like the same UN General Assembly week is also Climate Week.
Yeah. I mean, you surprised me a little bit. I would have thought that New Yorkers would be proud to have the United Nations smack bang in the middle of their city.
I think that the relationship with the United Nations and it's kind of finding its place in New York City has always been a complicated one. Because it's, we're a city really based on commerce. we're not a diplomatic city. And so I think that, not that it doesn't make sense to have it here, I'm sure it does. It's just that we're not geared towards that kind of, that kind of security, that kind of way of life. So, I mean, we don't close off streets. Like when you go to Washington, D.C., I mean, you'd be hard pressed to walk down the street and not find some street that's not closed off. It's just sort of the way it is. But New York doesn't do that. Well, now they're doing it just to create little parks and plazas so people can have places to sit. But so I remember one time I worked at I started my architecture career at a firm called IMP and Partners, and my dad was a partner there too. And sometimes he and I would walk home from work together because it was on 58th and Madison, and we lived, I don't know, maybe 40 blocks away. So we would walk home together. And one night we were walking home during the UN General Assembly, and I remember standing on the corner waiting because the the original President Bush was, driving by, and we were standing in that corner for like almost an hour, and then we find out that there were like 3 or 4 different pathways for him, so we weren't sure if we were actually on the right. They
Oh,
pretended he might
yeah.
go down these different streets, and my father and I are like, well, that's just insulting. We're standing there hoping at least to see the president. So those kinds of things are not, New York is like a very liberal, it is basically a very liberal city too. So, there's something about that kind of, whatever,
Yes.
authority versus lack of authority. So, but just it's finding its way there. I mean, the whole story that I think it was David Rockefeller sold the land to them, and it used to be pig slaughtering area. I mean, it's literally right on the East River. It's a gorgeous view. And it's a lot of, it's a prime location in New York. And I think its role in the world too has been so kind of a little bit of a roller coaster too. I feel like it's kind of on an upswing now. What do you think? I feel like the role of the UN has a little bit more meat to it right now.
Yes, I think it's got more credibility because at one
Yeah.
stage, as I understand it, the United States threatened not to pay its contribution because there were so many third world countries as members who voted down everything that the Americans proposed at the United Nations. But I'm trying to think of the right wing commentator, William F. Buckley, whom I met several times. But he was appointed by Jimmy Carter. And he said, I was really surprised because I recognized that I'm a right wing commentator. And Jimmy Carter made him a special representative to the United Nations. And he said he kept on in his mind formulating these great speeches that he was going to make. And then he discovered that the only speeches that he could make were those that were approved by the State Department. So they weren't his words at all.
That's right. Yeah, that makes sense. I know it's yeah, actually I guess what you've kind of just stated is kind of one of the problems I think with the UN is that no one can be completely honest when they're talking. There's this shroud of whatever, consideration, diplomacy, qualification, all that kind of stuff that again is not really what the United States is about. We're about, I mean, not to say that we always do this, but the hope is that we can tell it like it is. But I mean, there's also members of the UN, who don't. I mean, the United Nations would hopefully be for human rights, around the world, and meanwhile, there's members of the UN that don't necessarily care so much about that.
Yeah,
Just to put it gently, right? So, but I mean,
have you ever been to lunch in the United Nations?
have I ever been to lunch? I think I went to lunch when I was a kid with my mom in the United Nations, but it's been a very long time. I mean, like 10 years. I'm kidding.
It's the most incredible thing because I had lunch in the delegates' dining room.
Oh, very nice.
By decree, they have to have dishes for every member nation of the United Nations. So there are hundreds and hundreds of dishes all on display.
Very cool, right? I think that's cool. I think it's kind of nice.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's a beautiful.
I wasn't there long enough to taste all of them.
Oh yeah, no, you have to come back. I don't know how many countries you went through, but you have to come back.
Absolutely.
And do they only serve the cuisine from that country on their plate, or no?
Yeah, well, it's a self-service thing.
Oh, it is.
And yeah, so it's all in a long, huge buffet. You go down and help yourself. So, I mean, if you're Korean, you can get the food from Korea. But if you feel like getting food from Indonesia, you can do that as well. So it's all on display. But there must be a dish from your country. Yeah,
Huh. Well, that's a lot of food too.
it is. It is.
That's good to know. I know it is pretty like this week all of the flags are out too, whatever they're in session, you know. So it's a quite it has a pageantry about it, you know.
Yes, I mean there is a certain magic about
There is.
the nations. Of course, when you go into the chamber, and I was in there when there was no debate, is they immediately start to show you where I think it was Khrushchev banged his shoe on the desk and so on. Now that's the desk where he banged his.
So cool. And then the fact that you can everyone can hear a translation. So
Yes.
if someone is speaking in, let's say, in Italian, then that Italian is translated to every language of the different, you know, the people sitting. I mean, I think that's amazing, you know. I mean, translators are fantastic, you know.
Yes, absolutely. And then, of course, there's Cary Grant, who went in there and got shot.
Oh, what movie was that?
North by Northwest.
You know, that movie is perplexing to me. I feel like I've seen it, and then people tell me a scene from it. I'm like, I didn't see that. I have to watch that movie again. Oh, you know, I was watching. Oh, there's this great. So my son and my son is 17. He just turned 17. And one thing we like to do is watch movies together and watch TV shows together and stuff. It's like the one thing that because he's like a huge athlete and really, really works hard in school. So he's hardly ever home. So when he's home, we do this together. So this weekend, we were watching this show called, oh God, what's it called? Not OBX, not, oh my gosh. It's about it's called Outer Banks. It's Outer Banks, and it's about life in North Carolina. Have you been to the Outer Banks in North Carolina?
No,
Oh my God.
never been to North Carolina.
It's a beautiful place. I mean, it's right on the Atlantic Ocean. It's pretty stunning for sure. And anyway, this TV show is called Outer Banks, and it's about these kids who kind of are on the wrong side of the tracks, but they're actually the nice people. And then, of course, the people from the right side of the tracks are the people who aren't so nice. And it's this whole kind of story. But it's so well produced, Keith, because every photograph is stunning. Like every image of the area just has this amazing kind of, I don't know, it's like video that's saturated, but yet has like a softness to it at the same time. So it's just like you're watching this and it's like a feast for the eyes. Meanwhile, it's this like funny little teenage story about kids getting into trouble and stuff like that. But I'll send you a link to it because it's really something to watch visually.
Yeah.
And then the other nice thing about it is, you know, when you're watching things and sometimes there's like too much silence in the background and it's sort of unnerving, you know what I mean? Like this always has either the sound of a seagull or, you know, the sound of water or something. So there's always like a background kind of backdrop, you know, of noise or sound that's also really alluring, you know. Anyway, I can't say enough about the show, so I will send you a link so you can see a little bit of it.
All right, it's interesting you should talk about the silence punctuated that way, because John Henty, who appears on a Wednesday, is an old BBC broadcaster. But a couple of shows ago, he's suddenly stopped. And he said, when I do that, people panic. He said, but you know, the sound of silence is as wonderful as the sound of noise.
That's true. It is true, except that when there's all this activity on a screen and then there's no sound, like it doesn't make any sense. You're like, well, all of those things that they're doing make sound, you know, so why am I not hearing it? So there's that kind of disconnect that I think is unnerving, you know what I mean? But I would agree.
Yeah, you know, I never go. I'm the original rebel. I've always wondered why, in the broadcast industry, we actually produce everything in soundproof boxes, because we're dealing in sound.
Yeah.
To me, it's nice to hear the sound of a car or a horn beeping. And does it take away from what you're saying or what you're doing? Not in the least. Makes it real.
I agree with you. It's the sound
Yeah.
of life, happening around us. So it's a good thing.
Yes, indeed. We've been talking for 35 minutes, and as usual, the time has absolutely zipped by. I hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit better. I'm still not myself, but I have to get better because I can't get on a plane feeling this way. So I've got to
No.
rally.
And when you see Santos,
I might see him this week. Stephanos?
Stephanos, yeah.
Yeah, Stephanos.
When you see him, say that we've now talked about Tom Paine in the bar at the White Hart Hotel, and that as a matter of fact, I spoke to a local businessman who's a very nice man, and I said, look, we're twinkling my eye, we're talking about doing this, and would he be in overall control if it got to the point where we needed somebody to sort of guide it? And he said, oh, I'd love to. So we are making moves in that direction. Tell him to beware.
Exciting stuff. So who was Tom Paine's love interest? Because you can't have an opera without a love interest.
Well, strangely enough, he married the boss's daughter, the landlord's daughter, and went across the road to St. Michael's Church and married her. And St. Michael's Church was built more or less at the same time as the castle. So it was the definitive church within the walls of Lewis, of the Normans. And it has a fantastic history. So he was married there. But he did have a child. But the child didn't, I think, died at a very young age. And that's when he went back to the United States. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
His wife is noted. We know who he married. So I'm sure that we can bring her into it.
All right. Well, you got to have some little bit of love. I mean, if it's an opera.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, perhaps what he could do is he could have you as the diva and put Tom Paine in a glass box and haul him up over the stage to look down on you singing.
I love the imagery. I mean, I think it's fantastic. I feel like a lot of people like to surround me in glass boxes and listen to me sing. You just described, it's basically my life when I'm walking down the street. There's all these people in glass boxes around me, as
Suzanne, always a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
It's great to see you.
Not just me, but there are thousands more who think so. I'm delighted you were able to join us this morning. Your fans are not disappointed.
Well, it was great to see you, and I will see you. I'll figure out how to tune in next week when I'm in Italy. I'll figure it out.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, actually, Stephanos went down into the lobby of his hotel and simply used their broadband, and it came through fine. And if there's a bit of noise in the background, I don't mind.
On Monday, I'll still be flying. So I'll be in the air for this at Monday morning. So it might have to be another day.
Oh, go and ask the captain if you can use the plane to television reporter. It's essential that you get your report through.
It's essential.
That would be exciting. You're doing one from
it would be exciting.
30,000 feet. Yeah.
I'll see if I can arrange it.
Very well. All right. Well, if we don't see you next week, we'll see you the week after.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, Suzanne.
Bye.
Well, there we go. The last item of the day, Suzanne Musho. Oh, hang on, we got some comments here. Oh, Jeff Dodo. Hello, Jeff. Glad that you could join us again this morning. And I hope that you enjoyed Suzanne, who is really a breath of fresh air. Do keep watching. I haven't forgotten who you are, by the way. I remember you very well. Enjoy Ghana. Let's see. Yes, there we go. We having said hello to you, we're going to say goodbye to everybody else, and we'll be back tomorrow morning. The quality this morning was a bit up and down, but perhaps what we discovered is how to get the best out of this. Well, until tomorrow, this is Keith Hayes from the White Hart Hotel, Mirador Television, a potpourri of all sorts of things this morning with interesting people. And I hope you enjoyed it. Toodle pip. You said. Toodle pip, toodle pip, toodle pip. Okay. I'm just looking to see if we can get the little sign off. Toodles.